Welcome to episode 4 of One Quick Barra Swap. Now in this episode we're going to remove the engine and trans out, remove everything off the engine, give it a coat of paint. Lights out, we're going to put our high mount turbo system on it. Now on the car we're going to remove the master cylinder and booster. That'll go in the bin and we'll fit our newly designed boosterless kit. Now the boys have done a great job on the brackets. We'll show you guys how to fit it. While my head's under the dash, we'll make a bracket for the accelerator pedal. Alright, so I'm down in the machine shop down here. Now I've thrown the engine and trans up here on the bench for Jesse. So, Jess, what's our move, mate?
Remove the alternator, power steering, turbo manifold, then we'll pull the trans off.
Right, so once everything's removed, we're going to give it a coat of...
Yeah, we'll coat it paint, we'll clean it all up, give it a nice coat of paint, make it black.
So, the quick car yard special as we call it, so it'll be pretty rough, but it'll make it look a little bit nicer when it's sitting in the engine bay. Now, once we've got a coat of paint on it, what's your move, mate?
We'll chuck the high-rise turbo manifold on, then I'll show you how to hook up the 108 trans kit.
Right, so as we spoke about before, the 108 trans kit, the Rod Shop do, fits all the GM pattern turbo 500, 700, 350 and does your power glide onto your Barra. So I'm sure a lot of you guys will be interested in that kit. We'll do that. Now, I need to get a trans, so we won't do it with the old one. We'll wait for our Paul Rogers transmission and Dominator front of converter. So I'm going to get out of Jess's way. Let's set the camera up and let him get to it. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, mate.
Righto, so thanks to all you guys for the feedback on the wheels. They weren't a hit, the other side wasn't a hit. Everyone's voted for the largest snowflakes. So once again, thanks for your opinion. We're going to run with it. I'm going to order myself a set. So that's that out of the way. I wheeled it off the hoist here now so I can swing the doors open because I'm going to get in to the pedals. So what I'll do is for a start, remove the booster and master cylinder, get that out of the way and get the Wilwood setup done. While we're doing that, I'll have a look and see if I can sort out some kind of bracket for the accelerator. Right, so I'm making a start on the Wilwood master cylinder. Now obviously what I have to do first is remove the factory booster and master, undo the brake lines, I've undone the wiring, then I'll slide under the dash, remove the clevis pin off the pedal. Now keep the split pin, keep the washer, keep everything that goes there because we'll need that again. Then undo the 4 nuts on the studs of the booster, we'll slide it all out, then I'll talk you through it. Now obviously when you take it out, it's still going to have fluid in it, so I have a rag down here to protect my paint. Just make sure you carefully take it away, lay it over here. Now do not throw anything out until the job is complete. Righto, so booster's off the firewall. I've got it sitting here on the bench. Now one thing we do need to keep off the booster or retain is just the foam pad. Just grab a paint scraper. Just gently pry that off. We are going to need that to seal up in behind the plate on the firewall, so that'll just go in there like so once we put our new kit on. Now there's one other modification we need to make, and that is with the pedal. Now the clevis pin will load up onto your pedal like so, but we are going to have to remove the little pin. There's a few different ways you can do it. You can take your pedal out of your car, one little nick, buff it off with a grinder, hacksaw blade in through the hole in the firewall before you fit your plate. Or you can just get a set of vice grips in the car, just give it a few wiggles and it should break off flush. Now just make sure it doesn't break off nice and flush on there, and check clearance with your clevis. Now, I'll take you over to a vice, we'll show you a quick and easy way of doing it. So if that was mounted on the car, small set of vice grips, and as we can see, a couple little wiggles, that's busted off there quite easily. We'll have plenty of clearance. I mean, they're only a set of 7 Irwin vice grips, only a little small set. So I'm going to slide underneath the car while it's in the pedal box to save taking out. A couple little wiggles, I'll try and show you the best we can, then we'll get to fitting it up. Alright, so sat back on the bench, what I'll do is I'll get the camera coming through the firewall, we'll pick up the best we can, I'll slide under the dash and we'll see how easy it is to do it in the car. Right, so I've shown you guys how to break it off in the car, one on the bench. Now I just want to run you through a couple of quick little handy hints and safety things to make sure are correct when fitting on the car. It'll be a lot easier to do here on the bench. So with a Wilwood master cylinder, the push rod here, we have a locking nut. So run your locking nut down the thread, wind him all the way down till it bottoms out. The clevis pin which is supplied, nice big bulky clevis pin, wind that all the way down. Save winding that, just rotate that in the fingers. Now the reason I'm doing it this way to show you guys is because when you adjust it in the car, it's easier when this is on the pedal, just roll the pin in your fingers, it'll roll really easy. So roll him all the way down till he bottoms out. Perfect. Now, what we need to retain off the factory booster and pedal is your little plastic washer, like so, which will clip into the new clevis. Push him in. Now if we grab the pedal, as we can see, that will slide over. Factory pin, same as what the booster ran. Clip him in. Now, if we look at that, that's how it's going to set up inside the vehicle. Now, to adjust the pedal to make sure it is correct here, what we need to do is we need to have your pedal, so, poor old master cylinder, you need to make sure your pedal has got just that little bit of free play. So you just got that 1 or 2 mil of free play on your pedal, it should be fine. Now if it's hanging down too far, now to adjust that, once it is in the vehicle, throwing stuff away here, to adjust that in the vehicle, simply just wind your push rod in and out. If I lay that on its side, it might be a little bit easier. We get the cameraman up over the top. That there, as you can see, it's gaining the thread, which is opening it up. All that will do is bring your pedal out and around. So once you have it set and it's in position and you know everything's good, you've got your 1 mil of free play in the pedal. The brake light switch is working correctly as it should be. Just get your lock nut, nip him up, touches the back of the clevis. With a spanner, give it a gentle nip up. That should be fine. So, right, that's that part of it out of the way. Now, how we fit it to the vehicle. First step, the new plate. The remaining bit of insulation off the old front of the old booster. Take them to our countersunk Allen keys. Washers and nuts, which are all supplied in the kit. We'll go in the car and I'll show you how to fit it up. Alright, so time to fit it up to the car, and I've got my little apprentice mason beside me here. It's going to be a handy help, hopefully. Now what we want to do, step one, is just pop your brake lines out of the way. So we just pop out that clip, just give them a very gentle bend out of the way, give us a little bit more clearance. Now the original bit of foam off the front of the booster, that will go back onto the firewall. Now it's got a bit of a retainer lip there where it will hold its shape. So gently sit there and hold position. I've got my new plate, newly designed rod shop plate. We'll drop our countersunks in the 3 holes. I'll give my sidekick mason 3 nylocks and 3 flat washers. Mace will jump under the dash for me. Righto, so the plate's on the firewall. Next step, we're going to prep up the master cylinder. Now, like I explained to you guys, every single time that must be done. must bench bleed your master cylinder. So, bench bleed kit, read the instructions once, twice, 3 times, get it right, then we'll go and bleed it. So I'm going to throw it in the vise, fill it with fluid, hook up my bleed kit, and I'll leave the clevis on next to be a nice soft handle for me to push on. Well, we see there we've got a couple little bubbles there when we're towards the end. So if you've got a couple little bubbles there and you can just slowly release it, just increments at a time, the bubble will sit at the top of the tube there and not suck back down. You just got to be super slow. So yeah, back it off a little, the bubble will float back to the top, hold it. Once it stops, back it off a little and let the bubble float. Now you should be able to do that all the way out of the cycle. Stop that air bubble sucking back into the piston. Until we see there, fully released it, the air bubble's at the top. Now if we slowly force it all the way in, we should be able to push that air bubble down back into our reservoir. All the way in, all the way out. Now, after we get rid of all the air out of the system, give it another good half a dozen pumps, slowly in, slowly out, halfway in, halfway out. Make sure the air's completely out of the system, then we'll have some great brakes on the Falcon. Righto, so now we've got our master cylinder sorted. Before we put it back on the car, we'll throw the lid back on. Obviously being brake fluid, keep yourself a rag handy and a bottle of water if we get near the paint. So if you do spill brake fluid on your car, wash it off as soon as possible. Now the Wilwood master cylinder will go in either way, so you work out which way you want it to look, but I obviously, so you're looking over the guard will look best to read the Wilwood. Right, so the lid's done up, tubes are holding in the air so there's no fluid leaking out yet. Now what I'm going to do is we'll undo our clevis pin. Now we're going to fit this to the firewall. Now I'm going to run a proportioning valve. Now we would make an awesome proportioning valve, so going to need is the brackets, the bolts supplied by the rod shop. I do have a couple of shims here somewhere. There they are there. We'll just go and mount this to the car. Like I said, always have the rag there ready to go. Right, so one thing I did forget, our rubber boot, so it seals it up. So I will have to undo the lock nut quickly. Like I said, always get something wrong every time. Slide our rubber boot on without pushing the push rod in. Lock nut back on. Righto, so we've got our system all mounted up. Now, obviously keep the rag down there on your painted cars. Portion valve, bolts. Now with our Pro valve, we've gone through this before. In the kit, you get the bracket, which I've already mounted the bracket, the Pro valve, you get the fittings, and away we go. So if we read it there, for anyone who does do it, we've got a rear end and front end, that's your systems here, so they do the hard line. Now when we come out, we've got our 3 lines down here, which are factory. So you've got, I think it is the rear and the 2 front. So what we need to do is here is rear out, front out, and front out. So we see that written there, so which works out perfect with what I have here. So there's a couple of advantages here with this kit. The proportioning valve, you can dial it in and out, and you can set your front and back brakes, get a perfect braking system on your car. Also, to make it easy, once we mount this here, we can cut the tubes off at length, which will work out to move my rag for a second. we'll be able to cut our tubes off around this area here. We'll measure them, we'll mark them, we'll cut them off under the Pro valve. Put some new ends on them to suit the thread, the proportioning valve, which is in the instructions. Put some flares on, do them straight up, and our braking system should be good. Now, just remember, second-hand car, make sure you get your brake lines flushed. Alright, so I mounted up the rod shop kit. Now I've gone in and plumbed the line. So all I've done is shortened off the factory lines, cut them clean off using a brake line cutter, rerouted them. Now just make sure before you put your fittings on or when you connect them, rear and then your two fronts. So it's written on it there which says front out, and rear out. You need to get that bit correct. Make sure the clearance, and like I said, get your lines flushed or clean. Now when we start with the proportioning valve before I move inside the car, wind it out. So as far as it will wind up is the starting point of what I do is just check a letter on top of the dial and just wind it down 2.5 revolutions downwards. That's a starting point. Now it's not going to be spot on. Each vehicle will be a little bit different. That's a starting point, and then you'll be able to set it. Now we jump inside the car. I'm going to put the clevis on the end of the push rod, make sure the lock nut's there, and show you guys what I think is a good little bit of free play on your pedal. Right, so hopefully you can just pick that up there. So what I've done is wound the clevis on as far as I could, sat it on the pedal and just slowly wound it out with my fingers. You see me there rotating as I showed you guys on the bench. So bring it back out. Now if we look down, we are about where we need to be. So we've got a little bit of free play. We can see, hopefully the camera picks that up. So you've got a tiny little bit of free play. Now all I've got to do is put the clip back in and we're right to go. Now with that there, just make sure you have got a little bit of free play. If you don't, you'll have weight on your push rod, which will hold your brakes on a little bit, which will wreck the internals of the master cylinder, plus it will cause your brakes to drag. All right, and don't forget, the clip or the pin goes in to hold the clevis onto your pedal itself, and then we just nip the lock nut up. So that's all set. That's ready to bleed the brakes after we get the rear end in the car. So it's all plumbed up, good to go. And that, I hope you guys are happy the way that turned out. Righto, so on the accelerator, so I've removed the old pedal, undo the two nuts, slide off the stud, flick the cable out of the way. So the old one's out. Now onto the new one, we've gone to the fly-by-wire, electronic one, so it's got the plug. So we need to make a new bracket. Now, if you jump on a few forums and the Falcon page and stuff like that, there's plenty of guys selling them. So you don't want to make one, 80 bucks, I think 90 bucks, a couple of guys are to make you a bracket all bolt up. So, but here at the rod shop, there's plenty of brackets laying around, so I have thrown one together myself. So the only thing we did have to do, under the bottom there, you can see in my hand there, the vent box, we just had to give it a little trim. So nothing major, it's not going to affect the structure, just at the top there, just to get the pedal to slide up. So I got it in the correct location where I needed it. I've used the factory mounting points here, so the two studs there, they're off the original pedal. So as we talk about and everything we do is original equipment manufacturer, the OEM. We try and keep stuff as original as possible there. It keeps the engineers really happy when we do stuff because we know it's been tested and it should be pretty good. So the only thing I do need to do is I'll slice the carpet so it doesn't get caught on my new pedal. Tuck it up there out of the way and we should be pretty good. So now a couple of things there. So that pedal, the bracket, it's very easy to make. We're not going to make one. You can't get it from the rod shop, but like I said, you can get online and get them. They're quite easy. The brake pedal setup, now that's all done. The clearances are good. Everything's really good. Our free play, we've already set it. It's been done. Now that is not for sale. That has to be tested. The engineers have worked on it. The guys from Wilwood have worked on it, but it's not for sale yet. So if you watch the YouTube footage this week, that is not up for sale yet. So look, that part of it's done. We're going to whip down the back. The boys have put a coat of black on that engine. Jesse's making a few game plans, and we'll see how that's coming along. Righto, so we're down in the machine shop, end of the factory here with Jess, back with the engine. How's it looking, Jess?
Yeah, it's good. It's had a coat of paint, but I have run into a few issues.
All right, issues being?
Threads in the actual turbo manifold stripped, so I have to recoil probably the 2 rear ones, and that will probably do it.
All right, so Jess has got to recoil them, then we're going to look at start assembling it now. Paul Rogers rang me, the transmission's built, it's ready to go, so I've got to get down there over the weekend and pick it up. When I get it back next week, so we're going to delay it for another week, Jess will put it back together. So he'll show you how to put a turbo trans on, reassemble the engine, and we'll get it back in the engine bay. That's all next week. So for this episode, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe below. See you again next week.